First off, thank you everyone for coming upstairs. I'm glad we all found the room. I just got to say, my name's Justin Pemberton. I'm the Senior Director of Sales at ironscales. I've been in security for about 9 years now, been at ironscales for about 5 years, so hopefully I'd know a little bit around what I'm talking about today. Again, thanks to the organizers for putting on this event. Also a big thank you to them for putting me in the graveyard shift, as my gentle colleague up here told me. Everyone's had their lunch now and they're all falling asleep, so hopefully by the end of it I'll wake you up. I don't like to just preach. I don't want to do death by PowerPoint. I'd hopefully like you to walk out of here and remember a couple of items. But let me just give you a brief introduction around what we're going to be talking about, my role today. As you can all see, is it time to let AI drive our cyber defenses? Quick show of hands. Who here believes AI can be 100% correct 100% of the time?
Depends what you're asking it.
There we go. And what is it dependent on?
Or if you just want it to say no and that's the only thing it knows, it's going to be right all the time.
Okay. So we're getting there. So our philosophy and our belief, right, is when it comes to security, 99% is not good enough, but how do we bridge that gap when it comes to AI and letting it drive your cyber defenses? I think it's very important to understand. Let me take a step back. It's very important to understand our journey as a business. We've been around just shy of 10 years now. All right, we've got about 10,000 clients globally, some large deployments, 30, 40,000 mailboxes. We've got a big MSP community base. On top of that, we've got about 20,000 security analysts that use our platform every month. So these are analysts making verdicts on email and phishing on a daily basis. On top of that, what we receive from our what we call community. But it's important to understand that when it comes to having an autonomous SOC, you're always going to struggle to have that SOC without a human in there. And hopefully throughout this talk, you'll understand how we look at the human and what we do to improve phishing and email security. I think it's pretty evident, right? AI is one of the most transformative technologies in our lives. You all use it on a day-to-day basis, whether or not you realize it. Whether you ask Alexa to do something, you look at something on your phone or your watch, it's built into your Apple Health nowadays. I always remember this very good example. My son, he's now about 7 years old, but a couple of years ago, he's obsessed with animals. He always used to ask, Alexa, who's going to win in a fight between a lion and a tiger? Smart kid, really smart kid. And Alexa at the time, unfortunately, would not give a conclusive answer. Go home today and ask Alexa who will win between a lion and a tiger. She's been given smart, definitive answers. And why is that? It's because there's been a human input on one end to train the data models to go and gather more data on that. So if we look at how data is consuming us, it's everywhere. It's creeping more into your personal lives. We're seeing it in robotic surgeries. You're seeing it in virtual reality. You're seeing it in gaming. So it's out there whether we want to accept it or not. And there's a massive, massive promise in cybersecurity. ironscales, we're up there. We use it. We leverage it in certain ways. The machine learning algorithms are all trained on big data sets. These vendors, and ourselves included, are solving key complex challenges. Whether it's augmenting security teams that don't have the staff, whether it's fixing vulnerabilities at scale, whether it's identifying something that, again, would probably take a human half a day to resolve. There's a big, big promise around this. And we still see in the media, in the news, you still see, unfortunately, the negative stories, right? Breach this, QR code phishing that, penetration around some sort of network. So why are we not getting to that 100% if we're still seeing that? And here again, I ask the question, if AI could be 100% correct 100% of the time, why do we not put our kids, or why do we not hop into a Tesla and it just drives us off to our destination? It's because we're not there yet. What we're also seeing on the other end, hands up here, how many people in this room would fully give up control of your life? Not many. I don't see any hands up, so clearly no one wants to let AI run things. And the other element here is, we looked at the survey that Fivetran did. Again, 86% of IT and data science professionals don't want to give that control up, but a further 90% of organizations surveyed still rely on manual data processes. So they still rely on manual data processes as well as security processes. So again, there's that undercurrent and that theme of the human element there. We don't want to give up that control. I don't want to, again, I think, email is still a major threat vector. We're seeing more volume and more sophistication come out there. There's a lot more automation when it comes to phishing kits. Unfortunately, script kiddies can get a phishing kit quite easily now and start to leverage tools around that to target organizations. We're seeing more successful phishing, all right, be it ransomware deployments, be it CEO fraud, be it fake invoices being redirected. We're seeing more of that happen. And the other element there is there's more variety. As generative AI tools like ChatGPT have come to the market, threat actors have started to leverage them. Additional to that, we're now seeing multi-channel threading. What that means is you're not just being targeted on email. Again, email is still the #1 communication platform for organizations globally. Microsoft have given this wonderful tool called Teams. Absolutely brilliant. We all use it on our phones, probably making calls on a day-to-day basis, sharing and collaborating information. But we're seeing this sophistication come through, and that unfortunately means that phishing intensifies and there's more volume, there's more threats that are easily accessible to your end users on a day-to-day basis. And while there's this massive promise of what machine learning, what orchestration, what AI can do for organizations, I think a lot of security professionals looked at it and thought this could be the silver bullet. The way in which we use that data could really help us, and it is. There's no denying that with machine learning, with the right computational power abilities, understanding large volume of data sets, you have incredible applications for that for business. Same goes for behavior and pattern recognition. Using those models that are being crafted, you're able to do things with that data that you'd never be able to do before. And the other element again is being able to orchestrate, respond to incidents at a scale which you've never had before. But where there's a big gap and a big vulnerability is around what we call the zero-day threats or the unknown unknown. And that is where ironscales, through our journey, which I'll take you on shortly, that is where we've come to learn, while it's important to have that element, what is being underpinned by all of this? It's the data that you feed into it. It's the models the models are solely reliant on the data sets that you're using. And we learned that throughout our journey. So I just want to pause there, check again. Are we still all in the camp that AI can't be 100% correct 100% of the time? Yeah? Okay, cool. So I'm not gone off course yet. In terms of our journey, all right, so very important to understand where we sit. ironscales is a mailbox level cloud email security platform. We use behavioral analysis to understand what does good communication look like. Plugging in and again complementing Google and Microsoft with an API, we're able to baseline and determine who do you regularly interact with, how do you behave with them, what time of day do you engage with them. Once we've got that behavioral profile, that allows us to identify highly sophisticated and targeted threats, be it on Microsoft Teams, be it on email. The idea here is we're trying to focus on what we call the mailbox level. And why do we say mailbox level? It's because we started as an awareness training platform, which we still have baked into the platform, but we realized very quickly that being at the human level and not at the mailbox level, that was where the gap was. So we went to the mailbox level, created a baseline to understand what does good communication look like, flag this to your users, reinforce the human, tell them why this looks like a phishing email, be it the language behind the email, be it that it looks like a fraudulent attempt from a trusted third-party vendor or a CFO that you engage with. We wanted to give that human context. But and again, you'll see here, throughout our process, 2016, we developed AI-powered instant response. Ultimately, it's just MSOR, messaging security orchestration and automated response, able to aggregate, sweep through mailboxes at a scale that a human would never be able to. But you can see as we've gone through this, be it generative AI capabilities with our Themis Copilot, I'll touch on later, be it our virtual SOC analyst, where we gave her the control. we had this problem. No matter how good we trained and we updated our models, we always were working on improving how do we detect the threat. There was this gap, and it was only in 2017 when we realized where that gap was. And that is when we started crowdsourcing threat hunting. So again, we've been giving our users training for 2 or 3 years. Our client base was starting to grow. We gave our users a slick orchestrated reporting button. We were able to create an autonomous virtual AI analyst who could run that remediation for you, but only when we put that crowdsourcing element and actually leveraging both the security analysts as well as the human eyeballs, right? Because right now in your organizations, right now within this group of people, there are experts in the field that will be able to spot something, but that is the data that we need to underpin. That is the data we needed to feed back into our organization. So leveraging that crowdsourced approach, that meant we were able to go from that 99.1 or 2% and close that dramatically for organizations. But more importantly, and we'll touch on it later, is also around leveraging that to save you time as an organization. I'm not going to touch too much on this. I'll talk a little bit around it because again, it's, as we scaled across our client base, legacy technologies, what we saw, spending far too much time around orchestration and incident response, having to run PowerShell scripts, having to rely on end users to communicate with you. The legacy approach was reactive, and we said, how can we be proactive at the mailbox level? And what we were seeing is as we grew as an organization, we took this approach to have a triple layer approach to security. So having 3 layers of defense in order to protect you. While traditional email gateways, they were doing a very good job at blocking the bulk of spam, the bulk of malicious payloads, they were still reliant on signature-based approaches. And that just left the gap for social engineering, business email compromise. It also left a gap around time that security teams are spending, because they were spending more and more time responding to threats that were being reported and not proactively spending time in the right areas. What we then saw is ICAs, or the cloud email security market, came to the forefront, and everyone was saying, go AI. AI is going to solve your solutions. It's going to solve all your problems. It's the best solution out there. What we started to see is that those AI models, they're still reliant on, the machine learning models are still reliant on the data that you put into it. So we took a step back and we said, we've been doing behavioral-based science at the mailbox level. We understand that baseline of good communication patterns. Once we can identify good, that helps us spot the anomalies. We then took a second approach to analyze the malicious content. So again, we care about links and attachments. We want to make sure that we give them a secondary check at the mailbox level. And that third approach was blending what we call human insights. So again, leveraging a community of 10,000 clients, 20,000 security analysts who are constantly being educated and trained, feeding that data anonymously back into our platform, another 20,000 security analysts making verdicts on that. That helped us close that data problem we were having. So it meant the instance that we were detecting were being sourced directly from other clients' mailboxes. The decisions that we were feeding into our platform were being sourced directly from SOC teams globally that we were working with. And that whole approach of having the integrated training and awareness, the community, just meant we were bridging that gap at a faster rate. Part of what we were seeing, though, again, is as organizations were trying to consolidate technologies, relying on multiple different platforms, there was just this operational cost and efficiency. And again, why does this matter as an organization? All right, is because ultimately, from our perspective, without having that reinforced human feedback loop into it, SOC teams, security teams, IT managers were spending more and more time responding and not in the right manner. It was taking too long for them to engage with this. You could, again, we've got clients who have leveraged the gateway, Microsoft, as well as then something at the mailbox level, but in the modern workplace, in the challenges that we see around consolidation, around tightening budgets, having to educate the board a lot more, that became a bit of a, you got to pick and choose. But where we kind of took this was now around generative AI. Okay, so as the market started to consolidate, as we saw more and more challenges coming through with automation kits, with tools like ChatGPT, we thought, how do we leverage this to go and educate your users, go and make sure that the human-centric approach, empower the human, empower the organization, how do we leverage that? And that is what we developed with what we call Themis Copilot. All right, so ultimately, just how Microsoft released their Copilot version, we developed a fish large language model to educate your users. And it's a virtual Copilot within your mailbox, giving you insights, telling you why is this particular email suspicious, allowing your users to communicate and be self-sufficient. You know, asking a virtual analyst, instead of peering around or hoping someone comes back to you and saying, do you think this looks like a phishing email? You can get real insights from a virtual Copilot in your mailbox saying, well, even though this looks like it's an internal domain, we've seen it's external, or the language within this email relates to fraudulent financial requests. So giving your humans that power at the mailbox level, leveraging generative AI tools, that's helping us close the gap and making sure that, number one, we don't discount the user, we give them the tools that they need in order to protect themselves. And the same applied for what we call GPT-powered phishing simulation and testing. So again, because we have that baseline, because we know what good communication looks like, we know that Peter over here communicates with Justin and Peter over here communicates with Justin, we could leverage that insight in order to educate and train users on highly targeted problems, such as spear phishing. So again, making sure that people within senior positions who are often at risk, often being targeted, leveraging large language models, creating highly sophisticated phishing campaigns and targeting those users based off of your organizational context, that helps us educate and train the users. And again, while it boosts employee awareness, it's very important to understand that the adaptive AI models, what we're doing around that, we're not just saying, hey, there's your training and awareness, take a checkbox and off you go. Our platform continuously learns from how do your users engage on an ongoing basis. Who's reporting within the platform? Is what they're reporting legitimate phishing, or is it unsolicited marketing and spam? How do they fare on their training? Are they passing their training? So we're not operating in a siloed technology approach. Our AI models, Themis, is always being reinforced by the human element, be it through the community or be it through the ongoing awareness training that we continuously give our users. And again, why does this matter? Why is this important to organizations? I think, trying to reiterate, is it time to just let AI run everything? I think it's important to address that you're always going to have a human at the end of your email, Teams, other messaging platforms that you may use. But what we've seen is that remediating incidents, and not just, I know this refers to the business cost of phishing. We conducted a survey with Osterman. It's not just referring to phishing. Remediating incidents costs time. On average, it's 27.5 minutes from the Osterman research that an organization takes to remediate a single business email, compromise email. We're not even looking at the wider realm of phishing. What does that mean for organizations who are seeing this? Number one, we know that operational inefficiency is going to hurt organizations. They're spending the time in the wrong area. But number two, IT teams were spending more than a third of their time, especially in the kind of mid-market, larger enterprise organizations, reacting to phishing, not being proactive to phishing. And this is where, from our perspective, when we blended in the human insight element, the community element, with the benefits of our machine learning, our behavioral-based models, orchestrating the intent of the attacker, what that ultimately meant for us is that we saw a massive decrease in organizations going into ironscales on a weekly basis. So these numbers here that you're looking at behind us are taken from the ironscales platform at the start of a journey and at the after a couple of months of a journey of a client. That time that organizations spend, depending on the size of the business, significantly drops on a weekly basis. So again, blending in that human approach, all right, making sure that we have the humans to back us up, to be a part of the security strategy, that's going to give you a much better impact downstream instead of just relying solely on the AI. Again, thank you very much for the time. I want to open the floor up to any questions, any objections, and I suppose, check, is everyone still on the same fence as where we started? Do we still believe that you need the human?
Yes.
Yep.
I think it was interesting in most of the talks this morning. We've been talking about phishing attacks for years. I think every simulation or example we get was around it started with an email phishing attack. My question is more around we use Microsoft internally for getting a lot of QR codes phishing attempts.
Yeah.
Just wondering what.
Yeah, I mean, to your first point, email is always the first point of call, right? It's much easier to penetrate email than try penetrate the network. So, script kiddies, threat actor groups, they're always going to go there. Ransomware as a service, phishing as a service, they also use that approach, always start on email. To your point, the QR code phishing, we saw it 2 or 3 years ago. It's not new. I think it's very important to understand that it's not new at all. However, the way in which it's now evolved has slightly changed. So a lot of organizations, they don't have what we call OCR, which is identifying the text, because a lot of these QR codes are ultimately just an image inserted into the body of the email. What they're hoping is that you whip out your phone, you look at your computer screen, you scan it, and they're looking to compromise your credentials there. So it's an important one. Ironscales, whether it's Google or Microsoft, we plug seamlessly into that. Again, within a couple of days, we've got a good baseline of normal communication. Our approach to it, and this is where it's slightly different, is we look at it holistically. So again, who is the sender? Have we seen them before? Why are they sending you an image on an email? That's not normal sending patterns. That escalates the various levels of confidence that our AI will drive. And then from there, we look at other signals like the OCR element, like the community elements. So once we've put this bigger picture together, we're able to escalate that and say, yeah, this is an email. And it's not just reliant on what is that final destination of the URL, because that's the big part that Microsoft struggles with. I was on a security call about 2 weeks ago with Microsoft, and that's the big part that they can't do. They can't scan the QR code. So once you've been able to put this together, the who are you communicating with, why are they asking you for something, that gives you a much more accurate approach to being able to detect and remediate those type of threats. But yeah, very good question. Question at the back.
Hi, sorry, I just want to understand a little bit more about how that product works then.
Yeah.
So, when users send emails, your software reviews the email for that description and prompts them to change language?
No, so it's a good question. So when we do an integration, the first thing that we're going to do is a 90-day scan back of all your data. That gives us the baseline, okay? What we're going to do is once we've analyzed an email, if we see something suspicious and we're not 100% sure of it, right? And again, that goes to the point of, can AI be 100% correct 100% of the time? We're going to do one of two things. We're either going to escalate the incident and remediate that incident at scale. So whether it sits in one mailbox or 100, we give you granular thresholds to control. So we don't just give you a black box and say, let the AI do it. Or we're going to flag to your users and say, this email is a spoofing, or this email is an impersonation of your CFO, do not engage with it. So it varies on the particular type of use case, but that is where the various models that we've got all contribute to Themis, our virtual analyst. It contributes to her threshold. So we'll analyze it, we'll look at the intent, who is the sender, we look at the language behind the email, why are they asking you for a fraudulent invoice to be paid on a Thursday. They never email you at 4 a.m. on a Thursday. The language behind this is suspicious. That contributes to it. So we're going to do a few things around there, but the idea here is if we've got enough intelligence and that threshold's met according to your business, we'll block and quarantine that email from the end user.
And then do you see that changing users' behaviour?
So it's...
Would that be to an admin or to the user
So that's to an admin. So the idea behind the human approach, right, is we started as an awareness training platform. We've got a very comprehensive approach to it to do either education, like an LMS system, or phishing simulation testing. So that's integrated into our platform. Your users will learn from that, and our AI models will adapt from that. So again, Justin over here, constantly failing his phishing. My risk level goes up at my mailbox score. He's always reporting phishing emails, but it's always spam. Contributes saying low awareness, high risk level. Our AI models adapt off of that. On the awareness element, there's a couple things that we're doing. It's the dynamic banners, so telling your users why this is a threat, getting them to stop and think before. Again, customizable. You see your banner on your, if you see a banner on your phone or your email, what do we want you to do? We want you to hit a report button. So that's just a reporting button, right? Whether it's on your phone or on your email client, we want you to report that phishing button. And these are the prompts. This is where we change your behavior as a user. If I see something that's saying the language is not right, or this looks like Justin, however, it's not Justin internally, it's Justin externally, we give you sender relationship assessment to say, this sender has never contacted you before. They've also never contacted anyone in the organization before. Or we'll say, this sender has contacted 40 people within the organization before. So we're giving you that context you need at the mailbox level to make the right decision.
And so, one last question. So you score the users, your internal users score data.
Yeah. So
Your customers or your clients, because obviously if you start scoring our employees, there is a negative connotation around that. We could effectively monitor and giving them score data. When your clients react to that.
when you say score, can you just...
So presumably if somebody's always clicking on links.
Yeah, so again, it's not really, we do kind of a beginner, mid, advanced awareness level campaign, and that element there is kind of kept for you on the back end. It's not really something that we go out and say, you know, hey, Justin, you're constantly failing, you're a beginner still, and you've been there for 8 years. We don't do that. It's more about using that intelligence. So again, think of it from an email security perspective, a user education perspective. How many people use Microsoft or an email gateway, and then they've got a third-party tool for orchestration and a fourth tool for awareness training? None of those tools talk to each other. Our idea here is if we can integrate the human into the strategy, that is where we can have that adaptive AI conversation that reacts according to your business risk. And the human, the individual risk level is more from it's more learning over time. You know, you've done 10 trainings over the last 6 months, you failed 8 of them. Okay, well, we want to focus on those users so we can customize the training according to that, but also the AI adapts to that. So Themis, our virtual analyst, she'll ultimately learn and say, Matt, sorry, I'm going to pick on you at the back there. You know, Matt's failed so many times, and you know his risk level's really high. So when we see something, that's going to contribute towards that risk level. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you collaborate with people like Microsoft, Gmail, all the other email vendors, etc.? Is there like data sharing? The
host providers, so like Microsoft. Yeah. So we plug in via a graph API, right? So Microsoft have a social graph API that allows us to plug in, and that gives us the rights to inspect the email. Once we've got those rights, we're not taking a copy of your email and storing that on our servers all the time. What we're actually doing is we're looking at the headers and the metadata behind each sender, and that helps us build out the behavioral signals, right? The behavioral science. That allows us to understand who do you communicate with. Is it a regular sender? What are his normal sending patterns, sending IP addresses, mail servers, things like that. Once we've got that communication or that behavioral communication, that's when we start to do the smarter stuff around banners or detecting and remediating. From a data sharing perspective, we're pulling in that graph API. We're getting API calls to look at the headers of the email. Anything immediately deviates, we'll either do banners or we're going to send links off to our third-party scanners and things like that. But we're not sharing data. Already the data's with Microsoft, so we're just taking the headers and the metadata. If nothing is suspicious, we drop it after 24 hours. So again, it's more about once we've captured the first time we see that email, which is why we do the scan back, that gives us a higher accuracy or a higher efficacy rate around what we detect. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Question at the back?
Do you operate any controls on outflow?
It's on the roadmap. Good question. I'm assuming you're talking about misaddressed emails.
I'm thinking sort of data leakage.
Data leakage, yeah. So we're not a data loss prevention tool. You know, hands up, there's other vendors out there that do that. From our perspective, it's misaddressed emails that we're concerned about. So it's using, again, the behavioral science to know that you don't communicate with a certain sender. It's in beta at the moment, being tested with some of our enterprise clients. That's all I can really say. I don't have an exact timeline for that. All right, perfect. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.